All right, why don't we get started? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Waterhouse. Welcome to this month's predictive results snapshot, where we give you a little bit more understanding of the predictive index tool and some of our other tools. We are in for a treat this week because our Vice President of Sales, Bob Frere, is going to join us and talk about understanding socially driven patterns for selling and client engagement. We find that one of the primary reasons clients engage us with PI is to increase sales and customer service. And the wonderful thing is that PI points to the kind of person that is going to be best suited for that job. And Bob's going to talk about that. He is an expert in the field. He's written several books on the topic of sales. He's been a sales coach to some of the top companies in the world and certainly knows this intimately. So with that, Bob, we're thrilled to have you today.
Great, Steve. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session today. We're going to talk about understanding socially driven patterns, PI patterns, specifically in the area of selling, and I would extend it beyond that to anybody in your organization that engages your clients. Now, maybe we call them different things. You might call them customers. You might call them members. You might even call them patients. But who is that? I'll use the term generically today, client. Who is that client, and who are the people that you're depending on to interact with them in a positive way that is obviously natural for them and turns out most effectively in that client engagement. So we'd like to understand the social styles if we can. And look at the social patterns with obviously we all recognize these, and these are the high B patterns. There are 5 reference patterns that we see that come up in these jobs almost continually. Many of my clients are sales-related type companies and certainly customer service type companies where they've got people in a variety of those kinds of roles. We look at the authoritative management pattern first on the left, which we've often seen and comes up very often and very commonly in these jobs. We also find a very common pattern in these jobs is the persuasive management pattern, which is obviously the B over A, except other than an A over B. We also see often the altruistic pattern come up in this. Got a couple of examples of that. I have some clients right now that we've got altruistic patterns in a customer relations type of job that we're seeing some real high performance going on. We also have the social interest pattern. I do not encounter that very often, but it is a high B pattern that would come up in these jobs. And then we have the promotional pattern on the lower right, which comes up very, very often and is suited for particular kinds of jobs that might come up in this area of selling and customer service. We use 2 terms to describe what I'm about to show you. And people ask me about this all the time. Let me use these 2 terms, hunters and client service focused, and thinking of them in 2 different ways. People say to me often, what's the best sales pattern? Or what would the pro be like? But when they look at the pro, they often say, is this right? And they want to check it with me. And of course, the answer, as it often is in PI, is that depends. And so one of the things we look at is what kind of job do they have, and what are those duties and performance requirements in those particular jobs. Hunters have jobs that new business development is very, very important. New opportunities, new relationships, where that's how they get the name hunters. And that is a particular job that is very, very unique. Some people can do it and some people can't. And we look for patterns that people that would be in those jobs, hunter-type jobs, would do well and be very natural for. The other kind of job that surfaces in this topic area is client service focused, I'm calling it to this moment, where another name for it is are farmers, which I don't particularly like. So I use the term client service focused. These are sales jobs or high engagement client jobs, but they don't need that new business orientation. They don't need to be hunting. They are more dealing with existing relationships, and they have to service them, and that high B would come up in obviously those types of things. So two types of jobs we're looking at, and obviously there would be two different pros and two different patterns. Very, very often in my work with sales organizations, we split this up. I have a client right now that we're working on in Miami, and they're calling it, they call this job the retention job. And their job, it happens to be a phone-oriented type contact with the client, and the retention people are retaining existing clients, and the new business group is going after new business. So really interesting as you look at the kinds of people that you have in your organization, it's a good idea to look closely at those jobs and what those functions might be. Steve, any comments about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Bob, I was just going to ask because we see so many organizations that try to wrap these under the same person. They try to have the same person who goes out and finds the new deal also be the person that tries to maintain it long term. And first of all, what is the downside of doing that, and what is the solution?
Yeah, it depends, of course, on their PI. And if you look at their PI, hunters don't want to be, they want that challenge of that new business development and enjoy it and get some fulfillment on it. So if they get trapped in a job that they're servicing existing clients, they actually may get bored by that. So that's a downside of that. Secondly, you'd find that people that might have a pattern for a client service job really are not very good hunters. And if a chunk of their job is new business development, we find that they often don't do it. And they tend to find themselves doing things that are related with existing relationships. So there's some real downsides of mixing the two. And obviously we help our clients figure out who's who and who would better fit in those two very different jobs. So really good observation thinking about downside. Here's hunters. Let's talk about hunters just for a moment and kind of separate them for a moment and think about what pattern might be best appropriate for that. So we look at the authoritative pattern and the persuasive management pattern as pretty good hunters. These would be people that we could predict that they would be good at this. Hunters are generally need a high level of new business development, and as I said, they need to be prospecting for new relationships with a strong need for client acquisition. And again, separating these two would be very important. These people tend to be very competitive. They tend to respond well to that challenge of new business development, and they obviously have a strong desire to influence and persuade. So as we look at pros for this job, we often see authoritative management pro or a persuasive management pro, or a combination often comes up about these two patterns that we could predict would be high-performing hunters. So as we look at this a little bit closer, here's a pro that this is a sample. This happens to be a pro that I did in thinking about our own predictive results associate. And this is a pro that I came up with that you can obviously see this is a combination of both a persuasive pattern and an authoritative pattern. And I think we have proven, which I'll kind of show you in a second, but when we go to develop a job pattern from this, I think we've shown that this pattern can be a very, very good hunter or some combination of them. Really interesting thing of many of my clients, I've heard this question asked to me many, many times. Clients say to me, is this right? Did we hit it? Did we get it right? They say to me, in other companies, is this what the pro would look like for people that we want to hunt? And I say, yes, it does. It's a very classic pattern and very appropriate for a hunting type of job. We obviously may want to nip and tuck it a bit. We may want to shrink it a little bit and tolerate some of these plotting points, some of these pattern points to be a little bit tighter as long as the pattern stays good. So really an appropriate pro that we find when we go to create a job pattern, we find that we can prove this pretty well. Here's two patterns that kind of a variation on this theme. We've got the persuasive pattern on top and more of an authoritative pattern on the bottom. You can see the A-B flip we have here. Steve, you might recognize these patterns. These are people that are very close to us and are proven to be successful in hunting roles. And so again, the high A pattern is very, very important, and that A-B relationship, we can alter it and still, or modify it slightly and still get in the realm of somebody that would very, very be good at a hunting role. Make sense, Steve?
Absolutely. You know, when I look at these, I see a couple things immediately. First of all, that high A, which is all about confidence, and that low C, which is all about get it done and get it done now, and that A over C proactivity. Hunters have to have all of that. They have to be confident and they have to be go-getters, and both of these patterns have that in spades. And as you mentioned, the people who belong to these patterns are top performers because of it.
That's right. That's right. I thought you recognized them. Obviously, we also want to look at that kickback D a little bit and see the importance of that in a hunting type of role. You'll notice where it is in this pattern. It's not across the midpoint. I've got some clients that have this very pattern with a high D. And when we work on the job pattern, they tell me because it's highly technical. And the more technical orientation people are bringing to the table, they require that higher D. So variations of this can work, and it's really kind of interesting to look at it by a situation basis, but still staying in that hunter realm. Here's a just as we continue to think about this a little bit, you can see we have a series of PIs here in this overlay where we've got a group of people that are the blue pattern, obviously, and then compared to the red pattern. And really interesting way to look at our analytics in a group way, and just to make sure that we've got the right people in the right seats.
I'm always hold that for just for half a second. I'm always amazed when I see these at the white space. I always comment on. Notice that there's virtually nobody in the low A's and nobody in the high C's. We almost find no hunters that fit in either of those two categories.
You bet, exactly right. And notice where the D is, of course, as well, and of course you've got some white space in the B area as well. So really fascinating to look at it. And again, always trying to predict high performance. Really interesting if we were to analyze these pattern by pattern, person by person. But a really cool thing to do this for clients and to be able to do group analytics for them. Really tremendously valuable to examine this. So as you think about once you get them, what are the motivating needs of hunters? What do they need to be? We've seen lots of circumstances where companies take hunters and put them in the wrong environments and drive them crazy and get less from them. Because think about, I have a client that slash their people in paperwork and they kill the high A's. They put the high A's in environments that they don't like very much and find actually exhausting. So what are the motivational needs of hunter patterns, right? Basically, independence and flexibility. They need opportunities for expression and action, again, fueled by that low C. They like leadership roles and decision-making ability. They like opportunities for growth and advancement, freedom from routine. So in addition to finding them, we've got to then manage and lead them in environments that bring out the best in them and then let them use their natural abilities in a meaningful way. So not only who they are, but what kind of environment are they going to function best in and go. Let's look at the client-focused, client service-focused model, as I'm calling it, and those would be the other three reference patterns: the altruistic pattern, social interest, and the promotional pattern might fit into more of the roles that would be less hunting, less new business development orientation. You can obviously see we have high B's and lower A's here in this. And, these are people who do well in servicing and selling existing client relationships. Maintaining department that I mentioned to you, we would see some of these patterns in there. These are relationship and people-driven sort of roles, and they are, let me say this carefully, they're soft on closing. Yesterday, I was with a client who has an altruistic pattern, and she said to me, she happens to be, she's the head of HR for one of our clients, and she said to me, we were going over this, and she said to me, Bob, I would make a lousy salesperson because I don't want to close clients. And she was very intuitive to it that her low A would cause her not to push people and want them to move forward on some result or outcome. So we would want to put these people, these particular patterns, the altruistic, social, and the promotional pattern, in environments where closing and hunting and closing would be less important to their success. Customer service types of roles, retention types of role, even some kinds of retail selling where we want to have a very soft close and more of a relationship build. So as we begin to think about these things, we can see that these different patterns can be effective in different roles.
Bob,
Any thoughts about these things?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, one of the mistakes people make a lot is sticking promotional patterns in hunter jobs. And they do it. Yeah. They do it because promotional patterns are so enthusiastic and they're so personable and people like them so much. And they think that those people are just, that they have that aspect of what's important for sales. And they miss the fact that they don't have that confidence and that natural drive to go initiate the conversation to move the situation forward. And the promotional pattern, people know it, but the people around them don't. So sometimes by looking at someone, you miss the clues. And of course, that's why we do assessments. So you see that.
Sure. And this person's promotional pattern may be terrific in a different role, but certainly not a hunting role.
No.
So what was that expression you said about promotional patterns? Most overhired pattern that we see.
No question.
People get fooled by their likability and ability to be charming in an interview, and if we don't assess them, we'll never see that they are lacking in some of these other drives that would be very important to success.
So true.
Yeah, real interesting. So again, where do people fit? And all of this client engagement roles are obviously very, very important. One of the things we're seeing, I see it everywhere and have for a long time, non-traditional roles having to engage with clients. Think about accounting firms as an example, where they've got patterns that are not hunting patterns, and yet they've got to interact with clients and even get new business from them. And they find it sometimes very, very difficult because they don't understand the idea of what patterns would be better at that. Or I have a client, we have a PI client with Predictive Results that's an engineering company, and we're working with them on who are the people in that company that can actually get business. And the fascinating thing that they've done recently with PI's help, they've split it off and they've taken the responsibility that they tried to put on their engineers for years and it never worked. And they finally realized by using PI that they're going to stop doing that, and they've actually are creating a new division, and they're recruiting non-engineering people to do their selling. It's a fascinating
Smart move. Smart move.
Yeah. Well, at PI, put it in black and white and showed it to them. It was really a fascinating development. So here's a promotional pattern that we've been talking about a little bit. This is a promotional pattern. I use this because this is an actual PI of a client of mine. It's a little bit different. This is a higher C promotional pattern. It's a promotional pattern with a high C. Really interesting. This person, I've obviously scrubbed it, but this person in this job was recently removed from this job. He was in a job where new business development and new relationships were important, and for years he wouldn't do it. And for years he threw smoke at everybody that he was doing it and never did. And finally, in the past 3 months, this person has been removed from the job and put into a customer service job because he is a very valued employee, but just not right for this job, being a promotional pattern because of the new business development that he had to do. So lots of ways. You can obviously see the high B and the low A here with the high C, and charming, wonderful, highly sociable, very likable person, not an effective salesperson. Altruistic patterns, we see this over and over and over again. I see this a lot, that this comes up in client engagement type of jobs. Really interesting pattern. The obvious thing here, Steve, you're talking about, it's obviously got the high B social pattern, and a low A. This person has still got the drive with the C and the urgency, and then the high D. This happens to be a PI of a client of mine who is a high performer in a job, it's a sales job, but it is what would be equivalent to a route sales job. This guy has 70 clients, and he sees them once a week or once every 2 weeks on a given schedule. Extremely good at it. It's a great deal of relationship and detail that causes him to be good at it. He is there's very little new business development. He's got customers assigned to him that he services, and he's a star. And he does it extremely competently. It happens to be a fairly technical sales job where that high D comes into play. And the high D relationship, he knows everybody. I went out with him and made calls with him, and everybody knows him and loves him and loves to talk to him, and he does extremely well in that kind of job. Very low hunting, lots of service.
I think
lots of repeat.
You know, you keep saying in that kind of job, and that is you're so, there is no great pattern. There's just a pattern that fits that kind of job. And this is a pattern, as you say, you wouldn't normally think of it in a sales role. However, given the right kind of sales role, you got a star performer.
You bet. Yeah, it's really interesting. And just as a sidelight, we have a pro for this job that we spent hours and hours and hours on with 30 people. And they came up with a pro about it, and it's not this pattern. Their pro is more of a persuasive pattern. And really interesting. I've been out in their company, and I'm uncovering people in this kind of job. And I've gone back to them and says, you may consider adjusting the pro because you've got some really good, high-performing people with altruistic patterns, and that's not the pro. And really fascinating discussion that we're learning about this. And so, again, what kind of job do they have, and what are those expectations? What does this person need? Very, very different than the hunter type of person. What are the motivating needs of these kinds of patterns, right? Opportunities for interaction with people. They like to be part of the team, opposed to a hunter that can survive and do well with less team interaction. Structured job definition. This guy knows exactly what he's supposed to do and who he's supposed to do it with, and he goes about it with great professionalism. Work involving service to others, social and achievement recognition is very oriented to it. interesting sidelight. This company does a great deal in incentives and trips and social recognition. They're very awards oriented, and this guy happens to respond extremely well to that and likes that with that high B working. So that's kind of what we had for you today. And just again to summarize, is obviously when we think of client engagement types of jobs, there's several variations of it, and we obviously want to look at what are the job functions, what are the high performance requirements of each of those jobs, and how they might be different. Today I put them in two categories for you: hunters and client service focused. There may be a third or a fourth, depending on what you're doing. And the pattern, obviously these reference patterns may alter slightly depending on some of the research that we might uncover in your particular company. So I'd encourage you to go to your PI associate about this, and if we can be of help to you in looking at those client engagement, very, very important client engagement jobs. Obviously, PI can play a great role in that area. Steve, any other thoughts? We've got other dates here we want to kind of show people, but any other summary thoughts about this particular subject?
Well, I would just say one thing, and that is that we have a new cognitive tool called the Predictive Index Learning Indicator, which we also have found has a very high degree of relevance in the sales job. It essentially measures how well someone can synthesize new actions out of information, and especially in hunter situations, but also in often in customer service roles. People have to solve problems and solve them quickly, and we now have a tool that can help diagnose that piece too and understand which person is best in those roles. So if you're using PI but you're not using the LI, the learning indicator, talk to your associate and we can do a demonstration for you on that tool and show you how that fits also. So we're getting more and more tools to help our clients drill down and make sure they've got the right people in the right role, and also that they're managing them more effectively. But Bobby, I really appreciate the time. Really appreciate the focus on this important topic, since we have so many clients who are looking at the sales and customer service side of things. We'll have, as you said, 3 more coming up. We'll have these coming up every month. So watch for an email for the next topics and the next links. But this is one of the critical topics. But don't think we covered it all here. This is an opportunity to sit down with your consultant and really dig in deeper. So feel free to shoot us a line, and we will connect you with your associate. If you don't have a associate at this point working with you, let us know, and we'll match you up with someone who's got a good understanding of your industry or is in your area. Bob, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you all soon.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.